As we move to the first thematic session of the morning, we turn our attention to the broader policy framework shaping the future of tourism across Europe. The tourism sector is currently experiencing profound transformation. As has been said, climate change, digitalisation, changing visitor expectations, geopolitical uncertainty, and increasing pressures on destinations. In response to all these challenges, new visions and new strategies are emerging, and among them, the European Union has an increasingly important role to play, since it helps shape a tourism model that is more sustainable, more resilient, more competitive, and more aligned with the major transitions currently taking place across Europe. For this reason, it is particularly fitting that our first policy session focuses on the European perspective. It is our pleasure to welcome Mrs. Andrea Staicu, Acting Head of the Tourism Unit at the European Commission's Directorate General for Mobility and Transport. Welcome. Mrs. Staicu is directly involved in the development and implementation of European tourism policies and brings a unique perspective on the strategic priorities that will guide the sector in the coming years. The floor is yours, Mrs. Staicu. Just so you know, this screen, the first screen here, shows you the time, the remaining time, so that it may help you during your session. Thank you very much. On behalf of the organizers, thank you for following the time. Thanks.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation to be here today and to be hosted in this vibrant city and excellent venue. My name is Andrea Staicu. I work in the department that deals with transport and tourism at the European Commission. As it was just said, we are preparing a strategy for tourism that aims to tackle a lot of challenges that we heard about this morning. So very happy to be here today, and I would really like this session to be quite interactive because this strategy will be presented a bit later this year after the summer break. So we still have time to debate, and I would very much like to hear from you this morning how you see things, how are your solutions. We have around the room, we have academics, we have tourist specialists, we have people interested in tourism. So I take the opportunity this morning to hear from you, so please get involved in this session. Let me just have a few introductory words before we get into the theme of things. Why we need a strategy, you may ask yourself. I mean, after all, we had a transition pathway for tourism. Member states got involved with the Agenda for Tourism 2030. This was all necessary after COVID. We know that the sector was losing a lot of money every day, that visitors had stopped coming, and we saw at the time how important it is to have a more resilient tourism. But things have come a lot better since then. So we see there is growth. We have more than 3 billion nights spent in the EU in 2025. There's constant growth compared to last year. There's a 5% growth in international arrivals. And also the gross value added of the sector, which is enormous. Let me remind you, 7.3%. There are not so many industries that produce as much as ours today. So maybe there is not a lot to, a lot to be worried about after all. So it's also that tourism helps us a lot on the global stage, right? I mean, everybody knows about Europe's enormous cultural heritage. We have everything in Europe, from beautiful mountains to seaside. We use tourism as a soft power tool to speak to other nations. So tourism is a great opportunity, and it shows in this growth every year. But there are challenges. Some of them already were mentioned this morning. So we cannot ignore the fact that tourism also interacts with a lot of other sectors. These sectors may sometimes not be even aware. I joined DG Move about a year and a half ago. And we had a bit of difficulty in the beginning explaining how important it is to always take into account the tourist dimension. For instance, all tourists coming over the summer. How do you calculate all this? You have to take all this into account. So this affects other sectors like transport, also everything that has to do with culture. Everybody needs to be prepared. So we have to make sure that everybody understands the tourist dimension when preparing for other policies. So this is one aspect. The other aspect is, of course, this horizontal nature. Tourism is also influenced by other policies. So whenever we regulate, for example, we talk very likely about eco-label, for instance, very important. But we also have to think about the 4 million enterprises active in tourism that have to implement this kind of rules. So we have to give them support. Every time we come up with such a regulation, we have to make sure that the enterprises are able to implement. So every time we see the necessity of having this in mind. Now, a lot of challenges were mentioned already, but we had very, very extensive consultations. We have a commissioner for tourism for the first time in many, many years. And this is very important, not only because it ensures a link with the transport, but also because coming from Greece, he also knows very well how important this industry is for certain member states. In some member states, it's 25% of the GDP. So this is something that cannot be, forgotten. There are challenges related to unbalanced tourism. They were mentioned this morning. Now, what is really important here, of course, we have on the one side the importance, the economic importance, but we also have to make sure that the local communities can take advantage of this economic growth, and they can also enjoy the prospects that tourism brings. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that in these public consultations that we had over 1,000 responses from tourist specialists. We also had a lot of responses from the public, especially young people are interested. As you know, they like to travel more and more. They like to create their own experience. So we had very large consultations. What came out of them? Was quite complex. So we consulted on 10 themes, and I would like you to reflect a little bit on this as well, because I'm very interested to see you. Some of you may have already participated. This was already a few months ago. But the number one thing that came was related to unbalanced tourism. This is because, as you know, and it was reminded here this morning by the speakers, there is in some hotspots some discontent from the residents when there is too much tourism. Well, while I understand, on the other hand, I don't really like the word over-tourism, because I think that nowadays, with the aid of AI, with the aid of digitalisation, we can make the management of tourism something that can help overcome this challenge. Because there are many places, for example, here, next to Barcelona, that I'm sure a lot of tourists would like to see. Let me give you an example. Very recently, we launched a call under the Single Market Program, which was about routes. So basically, you would have rural areas that would come together around gastronomy, handicrafts, and so on. People today value a lot experiences. So with the right management tools, with the right apps, we can give tourists another possibility to see things around, to disperse a little bit these crowds. So while I understand this unbalanced tourism pressure, I think it's something that with the right tools we'll be able to manage on the long term. But this is and remains a big challenge. The other thing that is crucial for the industry, certainly, is having adequate staff and adequate skills. This came from the consultations as one of the big challenges for the sector. We have about 20 million people working in the sector, and they are all dedicated, but sometimes we know conditions are not so great because, working times and so on. So from this point of view, we have to ensure within the strategy that we have the right people with the right skills for our sector. And I will come to that in a second. Now, a big other thing that came from the consultation, and we've been talking a lot about it, is reduction of administrative burden. We've seen, and I have to say, this is not necessarily, when we ask for example, clear examples, sometimes we realize some of the things may come from the EU level, but sometimes, as you know, tourism is regulated at very different levels. So we have to make sure at EU level, at local level, at national level, that the administrative burden is as cut as possible, especially for small and medium enterprises. Other things that came, of course, from the consultation are related to transport. So here, of course, a lot of travelers would like to go for the sustainable version. They would like to take the train. You may have heard about some recent initiatives, such as a single digital ticketing. This is supposed to make the life not only of tourists, but our citizens easier when it comes to booking a single ticket on rails. And then, of course, sustainability remains a priority for the sector because many companies have started already on this route. They are taking measures, they are getting certified, they are reducing pollutions, they are reducing emissions. So this remains a big one for the sector. Digitalization, of course. We have started a long time. I think a lot is done at local level, at city level. A lot of tools are put into place. And this is something that needs to continue. We are working on a data space at EU level to ensure that companies, that national authorities have the right data in order to take the right decisions. And then we come to the global issues. Let's put it this way. So I was talking about soft power of tourism before. Very important because this is our image on the global stage, and here we can do more. Certainly we are doing a lot of promotion, also cities are doing a lot of promotions, national tourist boards are doing a lot of promotion, but we have to make also sure that in terms of the message that we want to send out there to international tourists, we build this image of Europe as being safe, as being connected, as being equal, fair, our core European values. And of course, there are dialogues that we can have with third countries, such as Japan, also Korea, and so on. There are dialogues for transport, and we would like to extend this for tourism as well. So this brings me to what we think at the moment, the 4 priorities of the future European Sustainable Tourism Strategies will be. It was mentioned before, just now on the 10th of June, 2 strategies, very important for the European Mediterranean regions, were adopted, the island strategy and the coastal community strategy. Tourism plays an important role also in this strategy. I mean, just thinking about what it means for the blue economy, 45% is tourism. So these 2 strategies already give a prominent role to tourism, but our strategy will really focus where the EU can bring the value added. Because our role is not to come at local level and say, you should do things this way or that way, because you know best how to do it. The idea is to give you the tools that can help. So first of all, in terms of where we want the strategy to go, important, of course, the area of competitiveness. And when I say this, it's not only about reducing administrative burdens for enterprises, but it's also about giving the right data, tools to destinations, and very importantly, skills to the sector. The other priorities certainly, and I'm glad again to emphasize this point on transport, sustainable connectivity, train, digitalization when it comes to transport. These are things that a lot of initiatives will be under this chapter. And then, of course, this brings us to a very topical topic, if I may say so, which is resilience. I mean, we've seen it time after time. After COVID, there have been certainly several types of crises, so we must be ready. Certainly, this cannot be business as usual. And here I'm not only talking about setting up networks, talking about amongst ourselves. It's really about exchanging data, but most importantly, being prepared at destination level. Because, you know, the crisis that may happen here may have nothing to do with what's happening in another destination in Latvia. So you need to be prepared also at local level. And here we would like to come with instruments. We have already started some time ago. We had a first project which prepared plans for destinations on how to be prepared, depending on their risk factors individually. So this is the kind of work that needs to be done in order to be future-proof. Finally, global outreach. We talked about promotions, we talked about dialogues with third countries. This is certainly going to be one of the major things that we'd like to touch upon in the strategy. Now, in terms of announcing a few things, I mean, I will only be allowed to say what my commissioner has already said about what's going to be in the strategy concretely. One of the most important things that we wish for is to establish a youth tourism academy to respond to these challenges relating to the workforce. We need people with the right skills, and we know there are many academies also at national level. We would like to start with a network of academies and to design the right courses. This would be online, so anybody can have access in all languages and search for the type of skills that are needed. This includes digital skills, soft skills, and so on. So this is one of the flagships of this strategy that has already been announced by Commissioner Tzitzikostas. Another thing that is very important is related to unbalanced tourism. We were talking before about this challenge of some destinations having too much, other destinations suffering because they would like to attract, maybe just 50 kilometers from here, more tourists. So we would like to come up with the guidelines to help calculate carrying capacities. We have experts from all over Europe who are working already on such calculations, and we like to draw on that expertise. Again, there are many things that are already prepared and that we want to bring together. And then, equally important, we like to look at the administrative burden. As you may have heard already, there have been many simplification initiatives already, the so-called omnibuses. What we'd like to do, because our sector is so horizontal, we would like to make sure that this becomes a more permanent exercise. It's not a one-off. We do so-called reality check, and then later in the process we forget about it. No, this would be about a permanent dialogue with the sector to identify the bottlenecks and to make sure that these are removed. And we'd also like to have this dialogue with the national and regional level, because sometimes regulation is not only coming from the EU level for tourism, it's coming also from other levels. So we have to identify exactly what the problems are. Now, of course, the promotion will be a very important aspect. We already work with European Travel Commission and also with the national tourist boards. And we'd like to work on a common denominator, on a common language, story, image for Europe to promote our values. So this will be also a very important part of the strategy to respond to, in a way, I was saying we are growing, but there are also other parts of the globe that are growing in tourism. So we have to make sure that we maintain this #1 leadership. It comes with challenges, and perhaps, if we have too much unbalanced tourism or badly managed tourism, then we'll be in a situation where people will prefer to go someplace else. So again, it's something that we have to take care of. And then, very importantly, and I think this will be for our strategy a crucial point, how to give destinations the right tools. There are already systems in place like Destinos Inteligentes here in Spain, which help gather the data that is needed in order to manage the tourist flows better and so on. We can teach in relation to greening, recycling, certifications, and so on. So we want to give destinations the right tools. And here I come to a very important point, and then I want to hear from you. Because clearly this is not something to be done by the few people in the European Commission. It's an effort for all of us. And one of the main tools, of course, funding was mentioned before, it's a key tool, but also collaboration. Because again, it's impossible to do and deploy all this effort by ourselves. What we would like to do is to have a reinforced model of governance, work together with you, work together with the regions and the member states in order to deliver this strategy, because this strategy will be the most ambitious that has ever been adopted by the European Commission, and we cannot deliver this alone. We will need you. So before we go to maybe some questions and answers, I would just like to say that very much appreciate being here today. I want to hear from you. And most importantly, we need to do this effort all together. I thank you and happy to take questions, thoughts. What are your priorities for the strategy? What do you think is the #1 thing that should be tackled? Thank you. It seems that we have an app, actually. If you like to use that, I don't know, please raise your hand.
Feel free to interact. Mrs. Saiku, any questions? Or any questions from the audience live?
So, who'd like to start?
Yeah, don't
Please.
be shy. We have a mic. You can just raise your hand, and we will... Yeah, there's one question here. Second row.
Thank you very much, first of all, for your intervention. And I'm Marcello Scarisi, Director of UNIMED, Mediterranean University Union. I would like to know more about the academy that you mentioned, because I would like to know first if in case will be open also to Southern Mediterranean education institutions, or is just a European dimension. But in any case, I would like to know more if there is any connection with other DGs of European Commission that work on education, for instance.
Thank you. So the plan is for the academy to be open to anyone who would like to study about tourism or upskill, let's put it. I'll give a very simple example. If you already work as a receptionist, you may want to know more about soft skills. Perhaps you'd like to take a course in English. You can simply connect and the course will be available online. What we like to do, because again, it's not that we want to set up something completely new, a nice building somewhere. No, that's not really the plan. The plan is for professionals to be able to access this online platform at any time, because we know that hours are difficult in our sectors. I mean, not everybody has the time to go and study like in a regular school. And of course, it will be open to all countries. We're even thinking about having this academy open for job seekers from third country. So you may know there is this EU talent pool and partnerships with third countries, talent partnerships where it is needed, personnel can be directly contacted by companies, and in the EU talent pool, this will give the possibility of connecting directly enterprises with job seekers. So before they arrive, they could already access this. It's something that is already, we're still brainstorming about it. The Academy will be announced in the strategy, but the actual step-by-step plan is something that we are going to set up step by step. But again, it will be open to everybody. And we would like very much to involve academies, at least in a first step, one per member state. But of course, it can be open further.
I have another question from the audience, and then I think we'll switch to questions through the app.
Hello, I'm Saeed Shadeyan from Lebanon. I would like to know, maybe if you have the numbers, the part of the non-EU tourists coming to Europe or spending these nights. Why? Because part of the burden, the administrative burden, is getting into Europe. And I don't know if there is a strategy to facilitate the access to non-EU tourists to Europe, which may lead to an increase more and more of the numbers. Maybe sometimes facilitation of visas, accessing it online, because when we need to apply for a visa, for example, to Europe, we need 2 to 3 weeks in advance, and to go to the visa centers and so on. Maybe doing this or facilitating this burden could help more and more to increase the number of tourists and to promote the touristic sector. Thank you.
No, thank you. I'll just comment on that because I'm not the best placed person when it comes to visas, but we have seen that there are several measures taken recently by the Commission and the Member States, which is the ETIAS system, where you can already complete online a number of things before you arrive to Europe. And this, together with EIS, it will entry-exit system that has been deployed as of April in time will make sure that Europe in a way is aligned with what is done in other member states, other states like Japan, Korea, the US, because a lot of things can be done already online when it comes to these systems. But I'm no expert on that. In terms of numbers, so the 500 million international tourists, it's difficult to actually, how can I put it, correlate it with the 3 billion. Because the 3 billion numbers come from a different source, that's Eurostat. So I'm not sure exactly about the correlation of how many nights was spent by the 500. So yeah, I'm afraid I cannot tell you exactly how these two figures correlate.
Well, it's time for 2 more questions that came through the app. The first one from Mrs. It's anonymous. Is climate change adaptation taken into account in the new strategy? If so, how? And thank you.
Yes, no, certainly this is one important aspect. I mean, especially in the Mediterranean, we know very well that There are particular issues with respect to coastal areas, islands as well. Some of these issues in terms of investment, circular economy, are also dealt by the recently adopted strategies, the coastal, maritime, and also the island strategies. Alternative business model, investments in the blue economy, investments in transport, including connecting islands to the mainlands. In terms of tourism, of course, we like to make sure that tourism figures prominently in the climate adaptation plan that will be adopted later this year, if not beginning of next year, and which will refer to several aspects, not only tourism, but we have to make sure that tourism is also included there. Very recently, member states adopted conclusions on sustainable tourism, and climate change was one of the main aspects also outlined in that respect in these conclusions.
Thank you. And the last question for this session. The idea of the academy is very interesting. How do you see the role of universities in this project?
Thank you. It's an interesting question. I would say the following. We will start with a network, so we rely very much also on what is already out there, what universities and academies can already put at our disposal on this platform. Of course, we know that as in every sector, when it comes to management, universities, and so on, these kind of courses are very well received, and in general, we have more stable labor force. However, in the academy, I think the focus will be on the larger workforce. So in that respect, perhaps more hands-on courses will be welcome regarding, I would say, very practical issues. For example, how do you recycle in a hotel? So this kind of courses where universities are delivering, we very much like to involve them as well.
Thank you very much. I think that is all. Thank you very much, Mrs. Taiko. You may return to your seat.
Thank
you very much
for your participation. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing with us the European perspective of the future of tourism. Your contribution provides an essential framework for many of the discussions that will follow throughout this morning.